Well, happy Tuesday. It's time for this week's video. Get ready. Well, I just finished recording the video and I'm going to have to check it because it went 13 minutes and I really feel I can say this in less than that. What I want to talk about today is something that got me going. Actually, it just got me thinking about something that it's a little post on the Friends of Mike Williams and the Gospel Revolution group, and it's from a Gospel Revolutionary, and he posts a question. He says, Jesus fulfilled the law, but were Gentiles ever under the law? My first question is, does it matter whether Gentiles were under the law or not? Because he fulfilled the law, but Paul said those who the law were not given to and were not under the law, he said they were a law unto themselves. Whatever law that they lived by, because there were plenty of Gentiles in that giant region where Israel was that had very similar religious customs and traditions to try to be righteous before God. The only distinguishing feature I have found about the law of Moses, which makes that law perfect versus theirs, even though they have very similar rules, is that in the law of Moses, the law of the Old Covenant, is if you break one rule, you are guilty of having broken every individual other rule. It was designed with that failsafe to reveal sin and the futility of your own righteousness. It was designed to point to the righteousness of God, to point to the righteousness of Christ. It was designed to point to Christ himself. So, no, the law was given to the Jews, but after Peter, James, and John all started their version of Christianity and everything, they started imposing the law here and there, and parts of it, not all of it, and traditions of it, not all of it, and so when they were winning Gentiles, those Gentiles were going under the law that they were never supposed to begin with, but they freely chose to do it, because the good news was not that they should go under the law. The good news was that the law was gone. And even if you are a law unto yourself, that day is over, because this is the good news, the announcement of the new covenant of peace. This is the gospel, the announcement, the good news of the gospel of grace and peace. And there's no more law. But, I mean, before the law was given, and before Abraham was taken away from Ur and away from the Chaldeans and everything, where they had traditions of rules and what is righteous and what is not righteous before God, he got away from that because of the promise of grace that he got from God when God separated him away from the others. God basically took Abraham, separated him away from the rest of the surrounding groups to start his own ethnic group, to be like a demonstration. He had a large sample study. It was a sample study, but it was like a scientific case study with this small ethnic group among the millions of other people in the world, to demonstrate that any attempt to practice your own righteousness under a system of law is futile, and it will reveal sin. So, any Gentiles who, after Christ went to the cross, who then became Christians and submitted themselves under the law, that was the biggest mistake that should never have happened, because they really didn't get the good news. All they got was news that it's like, Jesus is Lord, now obey the laws, because Jesus was a Jew and you should obey the Jewish laws. That was the wrong message. It was not the correct message. It was not the true gospel. The true gospel was Paul talking about good news. We are in a new covenant of peace and grace. The old covenant with its law have passed away. And not just that law, anybody who is a law unto themselves. Because Paul said in Romans 2:14, he said, for when the Gentiles, which have not the law, do by nature the things contained in the law, what are they doing by nature, the things contained in the law? These, having not the law, are a law unto themselves. They are a law. And so everybody around the Jews, they had their own laws of righteousness. They were a law unto themselves. They had ideas of what is right and wrong before God. And they judged themselves and others by those rules. So he continues on in 15. So, having not the law, are a law unto themselves, which show the work of the law written in their hearts. Now, this is not a good work written in their hearts. This is what's in their hearts because they've subjected themselves to this law of self-righteousness. What does it do? What are they do by nature the things contained in the law? So what do? Their conscience also bearing witness of what is written in their heart, and their thoughts, the meanwhile, accusing or else excusing one another. It's like, yeah, I know I've got some things to work on. I screw up every once in a while. I've got a few sins and everything, but I'm not like that guy. He's worse than me. That kind of thing, and they accuse and excuse people. It's like, oh, that guy, my other neighbor, my gosh, he's got it. He doesn't do what that guy does, and he does better than I do. He's righteous, That's the nature of that law that is written on their hearts, regardless whether it's the law of Moses or the law unto themselves. And that's the whole point. It doesn't matter if the Gentiles were under a law. The law that was given to the Jews was to demonstrate to the rest of humanity they are no different. And Jesus took away the law forever, and we are now all redeemed and in an everlasting, unending age of grace and peace. And that's what I wanted to say about that. And at least we're under 13 minutes. It's revolutionary, folks. Have a revolutionary week.